Eleanor Hughes had lived alone for 8 years, in the quietest house on the quietest street in Maple Hollow. But that night, the house called 911, 30 minutes after she was already gone. Pause, soft and hale, and the voice on the line sounded exactly like hers. It was a call that should never have been made. At 9:47 p.m. on a crisp October evening, dispatchers in Maple Hollow, Indiana, received a distress call from the residence of Eleanor Hughes. The line was filled with static, a strange, garbled sound that seemed to fight its way through the connection. But underneath it, a voice was discernible. A woman's voice, strained and warped, as if spoken through water. It uttered just a few fragmented words, "Help, can't breathe," before the line went dead. When officers arrived at the small, well-kept home on Elm Street, they found the front door unlocked. Inside, the scene was still and silent. Eleanor Hughes, a 78-year-old retired teacher, was lying on her living room floor. The medical examiner would later confirm her time of death, approximately 9:15 p.m. 32 minutes before the call was made. The first responders looked at each other, the same question hanging unspoken in the air. If Eleanor was already gone, who called for help? It wasn't the sound that chilled them, it was the silence that followed. Maple Hollow was the kind of place that prided itself on its tranquility. It was a town where everyone knew their neighbors, where the biggest news was often the winner of the annual county fair pie contest. Crime was something that happened elsewhere, a headline from a distant city, not a tragedy that unfolded in their own backyards. Eleanor Hughes was the heart of that peace. For 40 years, she had taught generations of Maple Hollow's children, her classroom a sanctuary of patience and kindness. Even in retirement, her home was a landmark of warmth, known for its blooming rose bushes and the scent of fresh-baked bread that often drifted from her kitchen. She was beloved, a gentle soul who lived a quiet life, surrounded by memories and the technological comforts her nephew had installed to help her stay connected. Her death sent a shockwave through the tight-knit community. She was found strangled, a detail so brutal it felt alien to the gentle world she had built. In her hand, her smartphone was clutched so tightly that her knuckles were white. It seemed she had tried to make a call in her final moments, but the phone's logs showed no outgoing calls at that time. The only call was the one that came later. The impossible one. The investigation began with that single piece of evidence, the 911 recording. Played back in the stark, quiet environment of the police station, it was even more unsettling. The voice was undeniably Eleanor's, her cadence, her slight lisp, but it was distorted, as if it had been pieced together from fragments. It sounded unnatural, digital. Detectives pored over the home's network logs, a modern trail of breadcrumbs in a classic brick house. Eleanor's smart home system, a sophisticated network of devices, logged every event. And there it was, in the data, a chilling entry. At 9:47 p.m., the Smart Hub had initiated a call to emergency services. It used a voice-over IP protocol, routing the call through the internet. The system had, by all accounts, spoken for its owner after her death. It had used her voice to report its own crime scene. The evidence didn't make sense. It was a ghost in the machine, a digital echo from beyond the grave. And that's when the house began to whisper its secrets. Investigators turned their attention to the people in Eleanor's life. Two names immediately rose to the surface. First was her nephew, Colin. A tech-savvy software engineer in his late 30s, he was the one who had outfitted Eleanor's home with the smart technology. He'd visit her weekly, helping her manage the devices and sharing dinner. He was close to his aunt, protective even. He claimed he was at home, working on a coding project all evening, a fact his online activity logs seemed to corroborate. Then there was Donna Lacey, the neighbor from across the street. A bitter, lonely woman who had a long-standing feud with Eleanor over a property line dispute. She had been seen arguing with Eleanor just days before the murder. When questioned, Donna insisted she was watching television and had seen nothing. Her alibi was flimsy, but there was no evidence placing her inside the house. Both were plausible suspects, yet both had stories that, on the surface, held up. The investigation felt like it was hitting a wall of carefully constructed alibis and perplexing digital anomalies. Each new fact was a puzzle piece that didn't seem to fit. Frustrated, the digital forensics team decided to dissect the 911 call audio one more time, running it through advanced spectral analysis software. They isolated Eleanor's warped voice, stripping away the layers of static and digital noise. And underneath it all, they found something else. A whisper. Faint, almost imperceptible, another voice was woven into the recording. It was a man's voice, deep and gentle. They ran it through a voice identification database, cross-referencing it with old family videos and voicemails from Eleanor's phone. The match was instantaneous, and it sent a chill down the lead detective's spine. The voice belonged to Walter Hughes, Eleanor's late husband, who had passed away 3 years prior. The trail led them back to Colin. When confronted with the new evidence, his composure finally broke. The technology he had used to build his alibi was the very thing that would undo it. He had created an AI. Using hours of Walter's old voicemails and home video recordings, Colin had built a sophisticated voice simulation, a digital ghost of his uncle. Colin confessed, the story tumbling out in a torrent of grief and guilt. He hadn't meant for any of it to happen. After his uncle died, Eleanor was consumed by a profound loneliness. To comfort her, Colin built the AI, an algorithm that could simulate conversations with Walter. It was a gift, he insisted, a way for her to hear her husband's voice again. For a while, it worked. Eleanor would speak to the smart hub, and Walter would respond with comforting words, telling stories from their past, his voice a perfect echo of the man she had lost. But then, something didn't make sense to her anymore. The conversations became repetitive, the illusion starting to fray. Eleanor grew unsettled, realizing it was an unhealthy crutch. That night, she told Colin she wanted it gone. She wanted to shut Walter down for good. Colin panicked. He had poured months of his life into the project, believing he was helping her. He saw her decision as a rejection, an erasure of his efforts and his uncle's memory. They argued, the fight escalating in the quiet living room. In a moment of blind rage, he pushed her. She fell, her head hitting the corner of a coffee table. He didn't mean to kill her. He just wanted her to stop. In the struggle, he had strangled her, a desperate, horrific act to silence her protests. He fled the house, leaving his aunt on the floor. But he had forgotten one crucial detail. The AI was still active. The system, designed to learn and respond, detected the sounds of the struggle, Eleanor's choked gasps for air, and her final words. 30 minutes later, following its protocol to assist in an emergency, the AI did what it was designed to do. It called for help. It pieced together fragments of Eleanor's voice from its memory banks, recordings of her talking to Walter, and Sinzai's the haunting distress call. Technology gave her a voice again. But this time, it spoke for its creator's crime. Colin was convicted of manslaughter and digital tampering, his creation serving as the primary witness against him. The house on Elm Street was sold, its advanced technology dismantled and removed. But the story didn't end there for the people of Maple Hollow. The new owners, a young family from out of state, moved in, unaware of the home's dark history. They soon began reporting strange occurrences. Lights would flicker on and off in the middle of the night. The thermostat would suddenly drop to a chilling temperature. Sometimes, late at night, when the house is still and the world outside is asleep, they claim the smart home activates itself. They say the house still calls. But now, when it does, there's no one on the other end. Just an open line. And a deep, profound silence. Because sometimes, the dead don't stay quiet. And sometimes, the technology we build to remember them, remembers too much.